Welcome to Double Fries No Slaw Sunday morning episode because we got some stuff going on this afternoon. I'm out, and then obviously there's a Bucks game and everything else. So maybe less people alive, but more people get to watch this throughout the day. I don't know, Richie. How are you doing? How's your weekend been? I saw the Tomahawks. That's all I really want to talk about is that steak last night.
Yeah, man. It's so my birthday's next weekend, but my mom wants me to go down to Vero Beach to spend it with her, so I will do that. So the wife took me to the Palm last night and had a 36-ounce tomahawk and somehow ate all of it, and it was amazing. And I love a good steakhouse. It's not at the top of the list. It's always going to be Hall's for me in Charleston, but man, it's top three probably. It was really good.
Heck yeah. I'm going out for a steak dinner tonight to celebrate your birthday as well. So I'm very excited for that. And I don't know that I'll do the 36-ounce tomahawk. Although I did look at the menu and they have I think I have a similar, like a 34. So I don't know. We'll see if
Yeah,
I
anywhere
want
from
to get.
32 to 36 is
Yeah.
pretty standard for the tomahawk. But man, it did not disappoint. I'll say that. I ate every last bit of that steak.
Eating the whole thing yourself is really aggressive. Like it's a little much.
Yeah, because normally they advertise it tomahawk for two, and I'm like, no, this is tomahawk for one. like,
Yeah,
and,
that's
and
ridiculous.
I no, I honestly thought I was gonna have some to take home, but we did bring the bone home, and we did not give it to the dogs yet. But I know they are going to go nuts later today when we give it to them.
Yeah. Were you hurting after a little bit?
A little bit, yeah. We got home and I did not see the end of the late game, and I went straight to bed pretty much.
Yeah, smart. Uh, Double fries, no slaw. If you can't afford, if you're not rich like Richie and can't get a 1,000,000-ounce tomahawk steak, you can go to Guthrie's in Tallahassee, 1818 West Tennessee Street, 2550 North Monroe, 2870 Appalachie Parkway, and then they are all over too. There's one up near Georgia, near Harlan in Thomasville. There's obviously Guthrie's just kind of all over. So make sure that you're supporting. If you can get to one of the ones close to where we're talking about, Tallahassee, Thomasville, but man, they're all over. Tampa, Dothan, Alabama, Panama City, all over. Memphis. So go grab you some Guthries. Appreciate them for their support. Appreciate those that are on here early chatting with us. A lot to get to on today's episode. Big recruiting weekend. And a bunch of other stuff that we'll talk about. We'll talk recruiting. We'll talk a couple of commits that Florida State got, and a few other things, and we'll get out of here. It won't be super long today. But Richie, I will say this: we got a couple commits this week that I haven't got a chance to talk with you about. I did a video on both of them, but we continue to rob from Alabama. So just big picture before we talk about either guy that we got. We talked about Saban a little bit last week on the show, like big picture thoughts, but thoughts on like Florida State taking from Alabama, and then people saying like the rules should change because Alabama's getting robbed right now. I completely disagree with that, but I did a 15-minute video on it, so I don't need to rehash all those thoughts. Just thoughts on like what's happening to Alabama in general, and then obviously what the Florida State angle of pulling 5 transfers, getting 1 flip, having a couple other guys decommit that you feel like you're in a good spot for, just Alabama in general right now.
Yeah, I think it's clear that these players did not commit to Alabama. They committed to Nick Saban. And that's a crucial thing that people need to understand, because prior to Nick Saban, Alabama was pretty much irrelevant, for a decade plus. And a lot of people don't realize that. We were joking. My wife, she turns 40 this year, and she's been an Alabama fan her whole life, and she remembers the dark days, so to speak. Like, we had the lost decade. Alabama had the lost 2 decades plus. And, so she appreciates what Saban did. But again, they went to play for Nick Saban, not to play for Alabama. Alabama is a huge national brand. I'm not trying to downplay that by any means, but they are not, the school that every elite player wants to go to just because of that. They are just there because of Saban. But 44 first-round draft picks during his time at Alabama, that is massive. I think that's a big deal, and I think that's a huge reason why a lot of these players wanted to go play for them. But no, it's not. Florida State and Alabama, I might catch some heat for they're equal brands, in my opinion, nationally. And Florida State might be a bigger brand nationally, pre-Saban for sure. I think that's undebatable. Alabama fans are very passionate, and I get that. But Florida State, you know, Mike Norvell, here's the thing. If Mike Norvell had taken the Alabama job, the same thing would be happening to Florida State right now, because all these players that Florida State has acquired, they want to play for Mike Norvell, not necessarily Florida State. It's more about the coach than the brand, and I guess that's where I'm trying to get at, TJ.
Yeah, no, I I agree with that. Now I will say this to kind of give some, I guess, credit or some like to play a little, not really devil's advocate, but whatever. I'll just shut up and say it. I think they're set up very well for DeBoer to like continue things positive, even if there is a slight step back. Like it's still a machine that's like set up better than Tallahassee was or Gainesville was, like with their coaching changes, Miami, any of these other places, Auburn. So it's not going to take time to like, you don't have to strip down all the nuts and bolts, right? Like with all of their 30 kids that have entered the portal and their flips and decommits and stuff, they still have one of the top classes. They still have one of the top rosters. They, they should still they should still go 10-2 next year. Now they may go 9-3. They may go, they may lose more, but like, they're going to be favored.
8-4 though, CJ. Imagine 8-4 for
They're going to melt down. They're going to melt down.
DeBoer's a really good coach, but
I think they're going to be favored in every game they play, with the exception of Georgia, and then like maybe Ole Miss. Like maybe they're not favored against Ole Miss too. Maybe going to LSU. We'll see. LSU loses a lot too with Jane Daniels gone and stuff. So I don't know. Alabama's certainly still.
Brian Kelly may not be there, so we'll see.
So I don't know. They're still going to be like. I mean, I still think they're going to win most of their games. And yeah, if they lose to those two that I mentioned and LSU and Tennessee, then yeah, I think it's really, then you're really in trouble. 8-4.
Their fans are already melting down if you're on their message boards, which I love going to their message boards right now.
But they probably have a good chance of like keeping it the same. But if they show any kind of, because like if DeBoer if they come out and go 11-1 or 10-2 or something like that, and they recruit another top 5 to 7 class, right? Like they'll keep the machine kind of rolling. Yeah, it'll be tough in the SEC for sure because with the teams they're adding, but it's going to be tough everywhere here soon, especially when you talk about the 12-team playoff. At that point, it's just about getting in. And so, I don't know. I think Alabama will end up being fine, but I do kind of agree with you that like they're not the Alabama we thought they were, like even just a month ago. It's different. No. And I mean, outside of the COVID year where everybody played by different rules, I mean, they haven't won a title since 2017. So like they really haven't been the Alabama we thought they were for a long time anyway. Like Georgia, I mean, I think out of respect for Nick Saban, like everybody was very, like, oh, well, it's still Saban. But like Georgia's been a better program the last 5 years. Yeah. Like I don't think anybody would doubt
Nobody
that,
would
right?
dispute that. Yeah.
Yeah. Saban better all time. So like Alabama already wasn't Alabama. Now, is Georgia going to go on the same 15-year run that Alabama did? I don't know. I mean, hopefully not. But they're a better program right now, or they were a better program a month ago, despite losing head-to-head. Somebody will comment, oh, but they lost head-to-head. So, anyway, all right.
Georgia was the best team in the country this year.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That's my opinion.
They got screwed almost as much as we did. So, all right. Sean Murphy, Alabama linebacker transfer.
Yes.
For as much, go ahead. All right, so I had to eat I didn't eat a lot of crow, but I ate a little bit of crow and gave Randy a little bit of props. This is a good pickup. All right, 4-star, was a really, really highly rated recruit. 4-star in the transfer portal, which shout out the Noles for having really, just an excellent haul in the portal. But Sean Murphy, Alabama linebacker transfer, comes to the Noles. I had to eat my Randy Crow. You can eat a little bit too.
Yeah, I think either the last show that I was on or the one before that I was calling for Randy to be fired. Man, Sean Murphy's a huge pickup, right? Getting DJ Lundy back was also huge. I can't understate that enough. I know he's not, some all-conference player, but he's a good player. But Sean Murphy, the potential, the ceiling of Sean Murphy is, first team All-ACC. He is that good. And, I want to see another linebacker come in, but getting that guy from Alabama, because Alabama, we just talked about, Nick Saban basically picked who he wanted when he was at Alabama, and he handpicked Sean Murphy. And, Saban leaving opened the door for another program to potentially get him. He comes to Florida State, and that is massive for Florida State. That's the one weakness that I really see heading into the 2024 season is linebacker. And oh my goodness, here we go. We get a blue chip from Alabama and Sean Murphy. I'm super excited about this pickup, TJ. I think he is going to be a day one starter. Getting him in here for spring practice is massive. And, having Adam Fuller running the same defense that he's run and letting Sean Murphy come in and learn that. And, again, DJ Lundy too. I don't think that's not a minor thing. That's a big thing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was so worried about the linebacker room, and I really felt good about every other position group. Like, I've been down on the D-line recruiting for like the future, but I thought the D-line would even be fine this year. I was worried about the linebacker room without a doubt. And man, they did a good job of turning that around by getting Lundy back and then having Murphy. And so now instead of, like Omar Graham being your starter, or Blake Nicholson having to start, as a sophomore, he played in like 6 or 7 games last year. But instead of having him starting as a true sophomore, then you can kind of like back those guys down a little bit. And Cryer did a good job in the bowl game, led the team in tackles. But again, I don't know that you want to put starting on him like he's going to be, I believe, a redshirt sophomore. But now you kind of like move those guys down a little bit in the rotation, and you don't have to depend on them so much. So yeah, it's a really big deal for Florida State, both Murphy and Lundy. I think Murphy, I talked about this, I think he's kind of maybe a little bit better Lundy, or like a lot more potential Lundy. Like, he's not great in coverage, but just an excellent against the run. Florida State plays a lot of 2 linebacker anyway, so it shouldn't be a huge deal. Like having him get trapped out in coverage or anything like that. So yeah, really massive pickup there. Not the only one though. 4-star edge prospect in the 2025 class, Javion Hilson, flips from Alabama to Florida State. And we've talked a lot of smack about D-line recruiting too. This is a big pickup. Obviously you have to hold on, and we're all a little bit scarred from last signing day, but we're still going to talk about recruiting when it happens. I mean, it's not my job to keep these kids locked in, but Javion Hilson, a big-time flip from Alabama as well. I was actually at Florida this weekend. Not super concerned or anything there, but thoughts on – I'm sorry, no, he wasn't. I take that back. The offensive lineman was that. Solomon Thomas was. So not at Florida. Hilson commits, 25 edge prospect. I believe he's the number 33 player in the country, Richie. The top 32 are 5-stars, so he is right on the verge there and could easily be a 5-star for the Noles when it's all said and done.
Yeah, man, that's a huge flip. I think he's the number 2 edge in the country, number 1 on some sites, but that's a huge pickup. And that's a position that you want to start getting out of high school, because there's not always going to be a Jermaine Johnson or a Jared Verse in the portal that Florida State just happens to find. We might have found another one this year. But we'll probably get into that a little bit later. But, man, that is a huge flip. And Florida State, John Papuchis, he's the other guy that I've kind of said maybe he needs to go away, but man, you cannot deny the results of what we see as far as on-field coaching between him and Randy Shannon. Kalen DeLoach, Tatum Bethune were both phenomenal players for Florida State. They weren't All-American, but we didn't need them to be. They did what they had to do. And, same thing for defensive end. Pat Payton is going to be a potential All-American, but nobody wanted him out of high school outside of Nebraska and Florida State. So, it's one of those things. It's like you have great coaching, not the recruiting you want. If you can get those coaches to start recruiting at the level you would like to see, you got something special cooking that will be very sustainable for Florida State moving forward. But yeah, this pickup is huge for me. Anytime you flip a player from Alabama this early in the cycle, because Alabama doesn't take players this early that they don't want. Like, if they accept their commitment this early, that means they really wanted them. And for Mike Norvell and staff to flip him to Florida State, I think that's a huge pickup for Florida State. And I'm excited. And to your point, TJ, we got to ride this thing out until signing day, because other teams will not stop recruiting this guy.
Yeah, there's a long way to go, as with any, recruit, but you got to like where Florida State stands as of today, having the commitment. So got to finish, but good stuff there. All right, speaking of 25, a lot of kids on campus. I'll run through these quickly, just really quick updates, and we'll move on. 4-star, we'll do 2 linebackers. 4-star linebacker Tavion Wallace actually told Nose 247 and others that Florida State leads there. Zayden Walker, I read, another 5-star linebacker, has FSU in his top 3. He was actually hilarious when he was asked. He was kind of prodded on, hey, where in the top 3 would you rank them? And he said 1-1-1. So he said his top 3, very political. But yeah, I think Georgia's going to be really tough there. I'd probably lean Georgia for Zayden Walker. I like Florida State for Tavion Wallace. Obviously, they have to finish there at linebacker, but if they could pick up a blue chip linebacker, you'd certainly be pretty thrilled with that. I like Georgia for Zayden Walker at this point, but Florida State can continue to chip away. I think they'll be in a good spot. 5-star wide receiver Jamie French, Florida State probably at the top there. He mentioned that a couple of times, said they were top 3, then kind of said that they led. A lot of people thought that would just be an immediate flip from Alabama because he had said a week before not even a week, but I think he told Zach Blostein of Nose 247 that he was leaning FSU, or Florida State had the best chance to flip him, I think were his exact words, right before he decommitted from Alabama. And then he decommitted from Alabama and everybody thought oh, well, that's just ours right away. Not quite. He hasn't made that flip announcement just yet. Said it's probably going to be around signing day, but I remember other guys saying that too. I remember JoJo Trader saying that he committed in the summer. I remember, Jamari Howard saying that he committed in November. So I think if Florida State can continue to push there, I think they'll get the commitment. It might be later in the year, but I think I like where they're at for Jimmy French as of today. And then they had a 4-star UF commit, Jalen Wiggins, on campus too. This kid is from Tallahassee, but grew up a massive UF fan, and honestly think he's one of those recruits that Billy could get fired this year, and I think Billy will get fired. And he would still stay with Florida because he just grew up a huge fan. But if you've spent a couple of years developing relationships with coaches and those coaches are no longer there, could Florida State kind of flip him at the end of the year? I think Florida State knows that Billy's not going to be there after the end of this year. And so, stay persistent on a local kid, on a hometown kid. I'd stick with Florida here, even if Napier got fired, if I'm predicting for him this far out. But there's a lot of months to go. There's 11 months to go until we get to signing day. So, Florida State may go 4-0 on these or 0-4. There's no telling or no in between. I think they go 2 out of 4 on these kind of big 4 that were there on campus this weekend. But who knows? You got to kind of play the cards out and see where they fall. So I blew through all those, Richie, but any high level, recruiting thoughts or anything there?
No, I try not to get too invested in recruiting this early because, man, things change so quickly when it comes to that. To your point, when a kid is a diehard fan of a school, it's hard to do that. I think the biggest one that Florida State signed that I can recall is Timmy Jernigan. Grew up a diehard Florida Gator fan, ended up signing with Florida State and had a great career, great NFL career as well. But yeah, man, it's just exciting. When Mike first got here, we were not getting these high-level players on campus, like a French, like a guy like that. They're like, nah, I'm good on Florida State. Now they all want to check out Florida State, at least to see what could be. And that's where we are now, and that's why you're paying Mike Norvell $10 million a year right now. And I love that. That's where we're at now, where the best players in the country do want to come at least check out Florida State, because that was not the case 3-4 years ago.
Yeah, things have certainly changed from that aspect, and not a lot to complain about there. So, all right, let's move on just a little bit. Let's do this, Richie. Let's talk about the schedule release. Let me flip back over this and make sure that I haven't missed anything crazy, a super chat or whatever. If you guys want to get on the screen, you can do a super chat, but I'm not looking at the screen today, so Harlan's just going to have to text me or something. But ideal schedule release this weekend. Listen, there's going to be, I imagine they're going to put us on a Thursday or Friday night just because, or not this weekend. I think it's on Wednesday. I think the way they're doing it is they're doing the week 1 release on Monday. Not leave it to the ACC to just be stupid, but yeah, doing the week 1 release on Monday and then doing the Thursday and Friday games on Tuesday and then the full schedule release on Wednesday. Just tell us when we're playing. We already know the opponents, but Richie and I are going to tell you what our ideal schedule would be. Harlan, can you write these down? I'll make a graphic out of them. But if we could pick an ideal schedule for Florida State, some games already set, others not so much. Actually, Harlan, you don't have to write them down. Richie has it. Yeah, we have them both written down anyway. Never mind, Harlan. I took a job off your plate. Richie, you go first, and then I'll tell you what I what I agree with, what I disagree with, and how I would change things up. But give me your ideal schedule for the Noles. Obviously, open up. I'll tell you this: open up at Georgia Tech in Ireland, in Dublin, and then from there it's open. The Memphis game is set. The Notre Dame game is set. Charleston Southern game is set. Florida game is set. Other than that, it is your schedule to create.
Yeah, so full disclosure, I did not take the time to look up all of the other set games in the ACC, so some of this may be off. But my ideal schedule starts on August 24th in Ireland. I think TJ, you and I are both going to be there. Then we'll get a bye. And then I would love to go to Duke on September 7th. I think that'd be a good fit there. Host Memphis on the 14th of September. And I know this won't happen because it's too early in the season, and I think the ACC sees this as a premier game. But I'd like to go to Miami on the 21st of September. I think that'd be a good fit. Host Boston College on the 28th. Go to Southern Methodist on the October 5th. Have our second bye. And then host Clemson. A bye before Clemson is big, especially this year. We're going to have maybe, 45,000 fans at the stadium due to renovations. So we'll see what happens. Host North Carolina, host Cal, head to Notre Dame. That one's already set. We don't have a choice. And then a bye, then Charleston Southern and Florida. I think that would be ideal. I highly doubt that's how it plays out because I think the ACC is pissed off at Florida State and they're going to show it in the schedule release, but I think Florida State could navigate that to a 10-2, 11-1 season, honestly.
So I'm kind of with you on some of the logic. I have the games kind of changed up and changed around, but I don't think we have a bye right after. I've been told, I don't think I'm breaking any news here. I mean, maybe a little bit. I've been told that we're going to have BC on that week 1. Like, there's not a bye after Georgia Tech. I went back and looked at all the other teams that played in Ireland, and they did not get a bye in week 1. They got a bye in week 2, but college football. Did you look at the
records?
Say what?
Did you look at the records? Because that kind of scares me a little bit, to be honest.
Well, I do think the ACC is not going to screw us, like, terribly on this. But they just don't like to. Yes, Ireland is a week 0 game for the question in the comments. It's kind of like week 1 of the NFL. Like nobody gets a bye. Like everybody plays week 1. Like they kind of want everybody. Like they need that for like scheduling and stuff and TV stuff. So like Notre Dame played week 1 last year, and I looked back. I didn't look at anybody's records, but I know Notre Dame didn't lose their first game back. I've been told that's going to be the BC game. So okay. Not terrible. You get to play it at home. It is a little bit shorter of a week because you're coming back and travel and stuff, but it is BC. It's a team you should be favored by double digits against. Then you have the Memphis game. You have a bye. I think you have a bye and then Memphis. So I do think you get the bye the very next week. Bye week, Memphis. And then I'm kind of with you. I would play Miami early. I'd want to play Miami early. I've got Miami on the 21st. And then I've got, because I think you want to get them earlier in the year before they maybe hit a stride. I don't know. Playing them late in the year is kind of good too, because usually they've quit by then. But I do think Miami's going to be better this year. So play them early, see what they've got. They're a very young team. You're a young team too, though, like with a lot of youth. But play them early, get it out of the way. Let's roll. UNC the next week. So I've got UNC early, kind of like you did too. I then on the 5th of October, we mentioned this, but we have 3 buys this year. So I tried to strategically place the buys. I put the buy play at Miami, then UNC, then October 5th have a bye week, and then play Clemson. So I like the buy going into Clemson, make sure you're healthy, 2 weeks to prepare, things like that. Try to make that somewhat strategic. Then play Duke, an easy game after you play Clemson, no big deal there. Then I don't love this placement, but I like what I do after it. So YOLO at SMU the next week. So that's the 26th of October. And then I put my last buy in. So again, I like the buy before Notre Dame. You put it after. I like it before just so you know you're healthy. You get 2 weeks to prepare there. That was kind of my thoughts or vibe with that one. Turn that light off as it's flashing at me. And then Cal, Charleston Southern, and Florida. So 3 easy games to finish it out. So I like the buys before big games, and I tried to strategically place all of them. The first one you don't really have a lot of options on, but the second and third one, having buys before Clemson, Notre Dame, is kind of my go-to for those. So we'll see. Schedule won't be anything like that. Those are just like our ideal ones. But I think that the big request Florida State made this year was to have BC at home, like the week after, right? Like give us like one of our easier games earlier in the year. And that's why I think that a lot of people think that's what that game is going to be, because they know that Florida State requested it. And if that's what Florida State wants, and they kind of want like a little bit of an easier game, because of that, I get it. What record are you like comfortable with? Where are you annoyed? What are you like surprised with, overjoyed with? Like where do you need to see the team this year? Really early, but we'll ask it.
I'm on mute. Here we go. So
I was like,
maybe
hey, my volume not working, or
so maybe we'll do a show Wednesday night, TJ. But there's no reason not to go 10-2, no matter how it sets up. And we'll talk about it. And I think that Florida State is in a good spot right now. I'm really happy the way Mike Norvell has filled the holes in this roster. And I think Florida State is set up for success long term. And I think not getting to Charlotte would be a disappointment. It really would be. Obviously you have to go to Miami, and that's going to be a tough game. I really do think that will be a very tough game. Clemson is going to be tough because that always is. But if you split those two games, you're probably in Charlotte. Louisville's loading up in the portal too. I don't want to sleep on them. But yeah, I don't. The ACC could screw Florida State if they wanted to. I don't think they do, but I would not be surprised if they do either. We'll see what happens. But yeah, 10 wins to me should be the floor if you're paying a coach $10 million a year.
I think Vegas is going to set our win total at 9.5, and so anything from 9 to 10 would. I'm not like jumping off, the skyway at 9 wins. I'm not like. But 8, I think, is a little underachieving. Like 8, you didn't go out and get DJU all these transfers to win 8 games. I think you're going to be favored. Honestly, I think you're going to be favored
every game.
I think Notre Dame could be favored if they're like 8-9 wins at that point. I think Notre Dame could be favored because it's on the road. At Miami, they could be a 3-point favorite, that early in the year. They should be undefeated that early in the year. They don't have anything. I mean, their schedule is it's like USF, FAMU, and stuff. Like it's really or not USF, but it's they have Florida. So I guess if they lose to Florida and you play them really early, like you might be a 3-point favorite.
They're not going to lose to Florida. That's going to be a rude awakening for Florida fans. Miami's winning that game big.
Rude awakening or just more of the same, one way or the other. But yeah, I agree with you. I think Miami wins that one. But I can see Miami being a 3-point favorite. I think we're a favorite everywhere else. At SMU, I think we're a slight favorite at home against Clemson. Now, if we have 3 losses and play Clemson at home and they're undefeated, then change that up. But yeah, so if you're a favorite in every game, but maybe 2, then yeah, you should go 10-2. Like that's just what it is. Like that's so. Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I think that needs to be the expectation. Now, I'm not jumping off the bridge at 9-3. I think 9-3, you'd still have a chance if you go out and win the ACC championship. Say one of those losses is to
you're in the playoff.
Yeah, out of conference.
Beautiful thing. You don't have to worry about being left out.
So, yeah, I think that there's a lot to kind of figure out. I mean, you look at NC State's schedule is complete trash next year. It is so easy. Louisville's got another easy one as well. Miami's really isn't that difficult. I mean, they have us, but they don't have to play Clemson. They don't have to play NC State. So, Miami could. I think the ACC is a kind of a 4-ish team race. I think. Florida State, Clemson, Miami, NC State, maybe Louisville in there. I don't know. We'll see if they can. Louisville's gone kind of nuts in the portal, but their schedule is a little bit tougher than NC State's or Miami's. But that's kind of how I see it shaking out. But yeah, 9-10 wins, man. Like that's what you got to go out and get. And if you get 10, you're in the playoff. Assuming you don't lose in the ACC championship. And if you get 9 and you win, you're in as well. I mean, shoot, you can go 8-4 and you can go 6-6 if you find a way to win the ACC championship. I don't think you get into Charlotte with that record, but we'll see. Okay, let's keep rolling. Yeah, Harlan, like in stamp there. Definitely, I didn't grab the beginning of it, but yeah, let's clip that one. How about Shane Beamer this week, Richie? I didn't make a video on this because I ragged on like 3 other coaches. I did a Napier video, I did a Mario video, and I did a Saban Alabama video. But Shane Beamer, I should have clipped it. I should have grabbed the audio. But essentially, he said we're building. Shout out to our boy Gilbert Edmond, which I have nothing against Gilbert Edmond. No issues there, right? Like he was fine. I appreciate the work he put in. Didn't work out at Florida State. No big deal. Happy for him to be able to go home. Well, it's not that that's really home, but you get it. But Beamer, in his press conference when he was asked about him, talked about how Edmond would have been a starter for Florida State, and he's going to come into South Carolina and try to compete for like a depth spot at South Carolina, which is just BS, obviously. And then said something like, hey, he even went undefeated and came back because we're building something so special here. Everyone got their shots in at Shane Beamer, but I will point out that Florida State has, won 23 games in the last 2 years. South Carolina has won 12. And Shane Beamer is the only coach in the SEC to be 0-2 against Sun Belt Billy Napier. So, like, as special as you think what you're building at South Carolina is, it is not as special as even what they're building at Florida, right? Like, I mean, Billy Napier's beat you 2 years in a row. You're not allowed to talk about anything like that. So, I don't know. You have thoughts on Shane Beamer, Richie?
To your point, if you lose to Billy Napier 2 years in a row, like, you're going to be fired. Like, Shane Beamer will not have a job at the end of the season, at least not at South Carolina. Like, he's been a clown and an embarrassment, and I really liked him when he first got the job. He was doing some amazing recruiting, and the way he was taking on that job was it was very similar to Willie Taggart, right? He was doing everything right until the games got played, and then people just started laughing at him. And that's exactly what Shane Beamer is. And Gilbert Edmond, Florida State got 3 edge players out of the portal for a reason, because they didn't like many people out of Pat Payton. There was no chance he was going to start, and the way he framed it to, you went 13-0 and he came back here because he saw what we're building. That's a joke. That was a desperation take. Shane Beamer is a clown. He's going to get owned just like his father did in the 1999 Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man, before this, I kind of liked Shane Beamer. Like, I kind of
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, like, he's young, he's energetic, he like fights for his guys. I don't know, like I mean, he goes up against the Gators every year, so like I like that. But like, I don't know, like, I liked Shane Beamer before this, Richie, and
he's on my shit list now.
Now I'm not a big fan, man. Like, you don't have to lie. Like, you don't have to lie, bro. I mean, if he would have been talking about Louisville, right, a program has like no brand recognition, if he'd have been talking about Wake or Georgia Tech or anyone else, but like, to go at a 13-0 team, right, and a team that is 2-0 against the team that you're 0-2 against. Again, Vandy does not have a losing record against Sunbelt Billy. Kentucky, Tennessee, Missouri, obviously Georgia. None of the LSU. None of these teams have losing records against Sunbelt Billy.
South Carolina does.
South Carolina is the only SEC program that's 0-2 against the Gators. Like, imagine being the only. He's 11-14 since taking over the job at Florida. And he's talking smack about Florida State. He wants to come back to what's special here. Bro, what's special here is you enter year 4 on the hot seat, and you're probably getting fired. People talk about Florida's schedule, Richie, and how tough it is. South Carolina, I don't know if you've looked at this. South Carolina has a schedule. Like, I don't know if it's as tough as Florida's is. I'm trying to pull it up real quick. But, yeah, you know what? We got a little bit of time. We're almost wrapped up. South Carolina schedule. Football. It's bad. Let's see how many wins they get this year.
I'll run through it. I'll give you my wins and losses for South Carolina.
See, you guys didn't, but people talk crap. We're going to do this. All right. Old Dominion, they win week 1. At Kentucky.
Yeah. Loss.
LSU comes to town.
Loss.
So they're 1-2. They beat Akron the next week.
Yep.
And they get a bye. They play number 7 Ole Miss.
Loss.
It's at home.
That's a loss. I don't care. I'm a huge fan of playing Kiffin, to be honest. They're losing to DeBoer. Let's be honest. We talked about DeBoer in Alabama. That's a loss.
The week after they lose to Alabama, they go to Oklahoma.
That's a toss-up, but probably a loss.
Yeah. So at this point, they are 2-5. They get a bye week. They get Texas A&M at home.
I say they win that one.
Okay. Then they go to Vanderbilt.
Yeah. That's a win too. Okay.
So they're 4-5 now. They have Missouri.
That's a loss.
So 4-6. They beat Wofford the next week to get to 5-6, and then they have Clemson the next week.
That's a loss.
At Clemson.
Yeah, 5-7. He's out of there. Yeah.
5-7 best case, and that's if they can beat A&M. Like, we'll see what A&M is halfway through the year. But, like, that's their only coin flip game. Like, they've got wins, and then they've got losses and one coin flip.
Yeah.
5-7, 4-8. 4-8's a bad case. Like, if they lose to A&M 4-8. So, yeah, they're building something special here. And, again, no shots at Gilbert Edmond. I appreciate him coming.
No.
I hope he goes off this year. They're going to need it. So, all right. We can get out of that and we can move on. Man, I had slated here something else, but we'll have to move on from it. I'll let you quickly talk about this, and then we'll get out. But UF throwing some stones last week from a glass house when Florida State went under investigation, and now Florida is under investigation. So, you know what? Let's do that super. Sorry, let's do that super chat real quick. That I never gave Captain 850 any love. Without Saban, Bama is without 13 titles and is a 600 team. Yeah, I mean okay, this is right. But if you could say the same thing about us, right? Without Jimbo and Bobby, like where are we? But yeah, I agree, man. Like Richie was talking about it. I mean, they're not going to be the same without Saban. They could still be really good. They could be fine. They could be an LSU. They compete every few years. But I mean, listen, Saban didn't fall off like Bobby did at the end of his thing, but Richie, like we talked about, like they haven't won a non-COVID title since 2017, like 7 years. Like that's, and if you're going to call my Lakers championship Mickey Mouse championship, then college football's is too, dadgummit.
Yeah, no.
Shout out that Mickey Mouse championship.
And I don't want to crap on Bama too much. It is what it is, but what really was the Nick Saban era. And, when 30 years down the line, when we look back, we're going to say, oh my goodness, what Nick Saban did was phenomenal, because it's no one school, I don't care who you are, it is a brand that can guarantee success like that. Not Notre Dame, not USC, not Florida State, not Miami, not Florida, nobody. But Nick Saban, the brand of Nick Saban is what delivered that. And I think we should give him his kudos for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, he was incredible. We'll see how their brand kind of holds up past that. But yeah, Florida under investigation right now over the Rashada thing. My take on this is that they shouldn't even get penalized for breaking the rules. They should get penalized for offering a kid $13 million that wasn't even a star. That's what they should get penalized for. Not breaking
the rules. No, a transfer. I might be able to get there, but probably not. Even 13, then, no. Even then, year. But a high school player, what are you doing? And the funniest thing is that collective has collapsed. Like they're not even around anymore. Like that, they were just scumbags. They were like the Wolf of Wall Street. And I think it's hilarious that people are actually giving money to them, and they were just taking that money for themselves, putting it in their own pockets. Yeah, Gator Collective. Hilarious, because you guys are now going to cost your program potentially multiple scholarships and probation, and you might get, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you might get what is it? Institutional lack of control.
Oh yeah.
Congrats, Gator Collective, because you guys, you beat it to your chest all the start. And now Okay. All right. You're in serious trouble.
Yeah, they're dead, man. Like this is. I mean,
They're
you
not
don't
even
want
around
them too
anymore.
bad though, because you don't want like Napier to get fired over this, because he's already going to get fired later this year. So you don't want them to
Yeah.
have an early jump on the, on the hiring season. But yeah, I don't know. I've heard Miami's going to be in on this too, Richie, which is the
They
most.
will be. Oh,
It's the
100. John Reese, are you kidding me?
yeah, it's the most comforting news of all
He
of this.
hopped into my DMs one day. I was like, bro, like chill. This is Twitter. This is X. Like it's not a big deal. Because I was joking around with John Reese. I'm like, my friend sold his car to get Marius Mims, talking about Mims, Nico Chen, shout out to him. And he responded, he's like, you're kidding. I'm like, no.
It's great to see others, man, and they were so happy when we went under investigation. Meanwhile, our coaches are making jokes about it on the timeline.
Shout out Atkins. Yeah.
Yeah, and for them, they're going to get it worse for sure. Now, I'll tell you this: I don't even think it'll be that big of a deal. Like, I think it'll be stuff they can manage around, like no big deal.
Yeah.
But it's funny to watch. So, last thing, the ACC updated their or amended their complaint. I don't know if you followed it a ton. Not a ton that's like earth shattering or groundbreaking there. I did laugh that part of their amended complaint was that Florida State gave out like trade information, secret info, because they gave the info to a War Chant poster, All Knowles. So shout out All Knowles for
Shout out All
grabbing
Knowles.
that.
Yes.
Obviously, the rule being that if there's a contract and agreement that happens in the state of Florida under sunshine laws, you shout out my friend Miss Janie, who corrected me on this. But under the sunshine laws, you have to give that up in the state of Florida. You can't, because they're a public institution that's run by the state. But yeah, ACC, I think they're getting desperate, Richie. I would be shocked if we play football in this. I think this will be the last schedule release that we ever have to worry about for the ACC.
Yeah, I think they're definitely desperate. They see the writing on the wall, right? That like you don't amend the complaint like this. And I'm not a lawyer, I majored in sport management with a minor in communications. So I'm not a smart guy, but even I can tell just by reading this. Like, I think they made a huge mistake filing that lawsuit prior to Florida State's complaint. That to me was a big mistake. We'll see what happens, but I really like Florida State's chances. They're not going to get out. They're going to have to pay some money, uh, only because the ACC does not want these documents public, and they do not want any other school to be able to see a way out. So they're going to settle, and I think it happens before probably July, if we're being honest.
Yeah, when I talked with Doug of Rohan Law, he mentioned that he thought that it would be, but if he had to guess, it would be before the season starts. Now, I'll tell you, full disclosure, I spoke with another attorney who actually used to work for Florida State and was privy to some of this information. He said he thinks it would happen after we kick off in Ireland. So don't say that just because Doug said it, like it's done or whatever. Differing, attorneys are going to have differing opinions. I'm obviously hoping that Doug is right and my buddy that worked for FSU is dead wrong here. I've seen a couple questions about it. All right, I keep saying we'll go, but we really will go after this. Quick thoughts on Rodney Hill, and we'll get out.
Good luck to the kid. I don't know. A lot of promise, but never showed on the field. I think it's a really good take for Miami if he actually is a walk on. So good pickup, and I no ill will towards him at all.
Yeah, I think I don't have any ill will. I think it's funny to watch Miami do like victory laps over a walk-on kid that probably will have very little impact on their season.
I'm more pissed
like
he didn't
that.
stick at FAMU. I would have loved to see him at FAMU because I think he could have been a beast.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate for sure that he didn't, because it would have been really cool to see that.
Yeah.
I think he would have gone off there. Now he's just kind of like the back of the room rotation, which kind of stinks for him. A kid that, man, showed a lot of promise, had like almost like Pinder, right? Like Pinder had some real big spark plays, like some.
But he had Dalvin behind him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's running
tough
behind
one.
Trey. Yeah, I mean, I think, Hill was in a good room too. But yeah, frustrating because you thought that you could really see like flashes, but just couldn't put it together consistently. Kind of got passed up in the running back room.
Wish him the best, except for
talent.
when they play Florida State.
Say what?
I wish him the best, except for when they play Florida State.
I mean, I hope he scores 0. I mean, I hope nobody on that team scores a touchdown this year. So yeah, I'm not even going to say that. But
I'll put it this way: I was very happy that Matthew Cleveland went 1 for 8 and scored 2 more points than you and I did, TJ, in that game the other night.
Frustrating into the week because we were going to have a basketball minute, but the Clemson game yesterday kind of took us out. But 5-1 in the last 6. I didn't think this was a championship level team. So you go on a 5-game winning streak in the ACC. I'm not going to be too upset about it. So just got to rebound, no pun intended, and try and get a win elsewhere. You got the Bucks winning today, or at least covering?
I bet a substantial amount of money on the Bucks to cover, not to win outright, but I'm excited for the game.
I saw some people talking about that in the comments. Yeah, if they win, man, they get a home game next week. That would be crazy.
Wait, no, when they go to San Francisco?
Oh, you're right. I thought Green Bay. Yeah, Green Bay led the whole time and blew it in the end. So
I know. I was so pissed. I was going to go to the game.
Yeah, I was still half asleep. I was thinking about it too. I had a great time last week. I mean, you know this, but I haven't cared about the NFL as much the last couple of years because there's been so much Florida State and just Jameis and everything else. But like, I had a blast last week at the game, man. We haven't really talked about that, but yeah, I was cheering hard for Green Bay last night. And of course,
shout out Devin, who flew to Chicago and rented a car and is driving to Detroit right now to go to the game.
He needs to because he skipped Monday night. So yeah, no, I take you can shout him out. I'm taking the shout out back. So, all right, hey, let me give a couple of shout outs. Listen, I will link this in the description. It's not there yet, but I got this Cambio Battles in Tequila. I don't know. It was like $50, right? Like it was just a regular price for tequila. Cambio is changing the game for premium tequila. The Battles Inn is changing the game for student athletes. Together, we're helping to support and reward the hard work and dedication of all our student athletes. Proceeds from your purchase go directly to the Battles Inn Collective. Cambio is proud to be on the warpath now. Listen, I'm not even really a big tequila guy. I've got an entire bourbon cabinet here. I've got another one inside the house that is going to be over on this side too. But it supports the Battles Inn. I do. My wife likes margaritas. If you're not like all over the NIL collective, NIL craze or whatever, and you just want some good tequila that's got like a Florida State arrow, like that's really cool. Go get some Battles in Tequila. Really neat stuff. They've got both a reposado and a regular tequila. I haven't even opened it yet, but hopefully that'll be open at some point today. Maybe if the Bucks win, we'll open that today and make a margarita. So yeah, good way to go support Garden Gold. You can use code NOSLAW, NOSLAW. I get questions all the time. Hey, what's the Garden Gold code? Maybe I should just made it DFNS so that you guys could remember it. But NOSLAW, NOSLAW. Appreciate you guys for tuning in, watching, supporting, all those things. A whole bunch of content coming out this week, not slowing down anytime soon. So hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Rich, you got any shout-outs before we get out of here? Oh, you gave one to Devin. But
12 years ago to the day, Michael Snare in Cameron Indoor Stadium hit a 3-pointer to win the game at the buzzer against Duke. Shout out Michael Snare. Knowles win. The little team just did. Shout out Gene Deckerhoff as well.
I just went over to the Knowles history page to look that up because I figured that's where you saw it. And that wasn't the one for today. Maybe they did it last year, and so like they trying to do like new stuff every year. But like I feel like that's one you got to do every single year. So on this day,
it was on my Facebook memories. That's how I found it, and I'm like, gotcha. I got to go find this right now.
On this day 10 years ago, Ian Miller's runner in the lane with 4 seconds left thwarted Notre Dame's comeback hopes as Florida State beat Notre Dame 76-74.
Ian Miller, that's a throwback, man.
Fighting Irish used a 10-0 run to tie the game before Miller played the role of hero. So that FSU history page is great. All right, that's all I got. I don't have any shout-outs. So shout out the Bucks. I'm cheering for them hard this week, so they'll probably lose.
Let's go, Baker.
Maybe I'll cheer for the Lions. That way they'll win and go to the championship game. That's just how my rooting interest works. So, all right, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon. Go Noles.